Hi everyone, it's Iftikhar and I am so excited about this one because today we are talking about n8n. This is a complete beginner-friendly n8n tutorial. Over the next 90 minutes, you are not just going to sit back and watch. You are going to go from absolute zero to building your first AI agents and automations. Even if you are completely new to n8n, this video is made exactly for you. By the end of it, you will have the solid foundation you need to start building these automations on your own. And we will build a total of 8 fully functional workflows. So, in a nutshell, n8n is an automation platform. It handles all the boring repetitive tasks you absolutely hate doing. In this video, we are building all 8 workflows together, step by step. We will start simple. We'll start with the basics, capturing data from a simple web form and automatically appending it as a new row directly into Google Sheet to build a clean record of your incoming leads. Then we'll route that data by adding conditional logic. We'll set up rules so that if a customer marks their request as urgent, the system instantly triggers an alert mail to the admin via Gmail. Next, we'll step outside of the default n8n forms. I will show you how to use webhooks to connect custom HTML chat widget from your own website. Standardize that incoming data and map it perfectly into our existing automation. After that, we'll tackle bulk data operations. I'll show you how to pull data from a massive spreadsheet, filter the unhandled tasks, aggregate them into a single list, a front-end HTML summary report. I'll also discuss how you can schedule this so that it hits your inbox every morning. From here, things are get really interesting. As we move into AI, we will build our first AI agent, giving it an OpenAI chat model for a brain, attaching memory so it can remember your past conversations, and equipping it with tools to calculate math on its own. We'll then upgrade our earlier routing system by putting them AI in charge. Our AI agent will automatically read the incoming message, understand the context, and triage them as urgent or normal entirely on its own. And finally, our ultimate workflow will build a complete RAG system. First, we'll process a PDF document and securely store it into a Supabase vector database. And I'll show you how to communicate with this AI agent with the chat inbox right from your website. And it can answer client question around the clock 24/7. Trained exclusively on that document so it never invents outside information. The best part is that we are not just talking about theory. In this video, you and me, we are building 8 of these together, step by step. Every trigger, every node, every click. I'll share my screen and walk you through everything from creating our account all the way a full RAG powered AI support agent. Don't worry if those words mean nothing to you right now. Trust me, in 90 minutes, you will be using them like it's nothing. All the workflow templates, custom HTML files, and resources are linked in the description below. So grab a coffee, open up your environment, and let's go build our very fast automation. Let's get into it. Okay, let's first understand what n8n actually is. You have probably heard the name n8n everywhere, but what exactly it is and why would you choose it over platforms like Zapier or Make? In simple terms, n8n is a powerful workflow automation tool. When an event happens in one application, n8n can capture that data, process it, and pass it to another application automatically. Zero manual work. For example, someone submits a form on your own website, n8n can catches the data, saves it securely to a Google Sheet, and if the priority is urgent, it immediately sends you an alert email. You set it up once and it just keeps running in the background. We built all of these on a visual canvas. Now, you might have confusion. Zapier does this too. Then why use n8n? That is fair question. And here are 4 major differences. First one is pricing. This is massive differentiator. Zapier charges per task, meaning every single step in your workflow costs money. 10 steps, one run burns 10 tasks. n8n does the exact opposite. n8n charges us for workflow execution. It does not charge per step. We can add as many steps as we want to a workflow, and we are only charged for that one workflow run. Second, self-hosting. n8n also has a community edition. This is the free self-hosted version. We can run it by ourselves instead of letting n8n run it for us. You can deploy it in your own computer or your own server, meaning your data stays entirely under your control. With Zapier or Make, you are forced to use their server and accept their pricing. With n8n, you have the choice. Third, flexibility. Most automation tools keeps things simple until you hit a wall and need something custom. n8n has no ceiling. It's no code first, but when you need to, you can drop JavaScript directly into the workflow. You can use webhooks to connect it to basically anything, and the sky is the limit. Fourth, AI agent is my absolute favorite feature, and it has native AI agent built right into the platform. So, a quick recap, you pay per execution, not per step. You can control your server and your data if you want to. It also no code but allows you to write code when you need it. And it has native AI agent built right in. That is n8n. Now you have understand what n8n is. Now let's get started. Let's start from the beginning. Let's head over to n8n.io. This is the official website of n8n. Now let's go to the pricing section. As you can see, n8n gives us a few different pricing options. The plan starts as low as $20 per month, and there's the annual price. If we switch to monthly billing, it goes up to $24 a month. Either way, this is the lowest starter package. Okay, let's switch back to annual. Now, here, the key difference between n8n and other tools like Zapier is that n8n charges us for per workflow, not each step. We can add as many steps as we want in the workflow, and we are only charged for that workflow run. They actually call this out here on this page, pay for full execution, not for each step. n8n also has a community edition. This is the free self-hosted version. We can run it ourselves instead letting n8n to do it for us. We can install it ourselves on our local computer and test it out, or we can put it on a VPS and manage it by ourselves. Now, self-hosting like that in a VPS server costs much less than it is hosted by n8n itself. But the hosted version of n8n at this price and with these features comes with a lot of predefined action ready to go. And it's much easier to maintain, even though it's more expensive than running it yourself on a VPS. So here I'm going to go with this starter package. And the nice part is we can begin with a free trial and no credit card is required. So let's click on start new trial, and here I'll enter my company email. This one is mine, and submit. Okay, it sent me a verification mail. Let's go check it. Let's copy this code and paste it back into n8n. Let's submit that. Now I need to fill my full name, then give the account a name. I can call it Hello Shishit, the same name as my channel. And let's start our 14 days trial. We need to wait a few seconds for account to finish setup. Now it's asking me a couple of questions. First up, what is the size of our company? I will just pick something at random here. Whatever comes to mind works fine since this is only for their onboarding. Next, it wants to add another user's email so we can collaborate. I don't need that. So let's skip it. And here we go. Here in this page, n8n is suggesting me a YouTube video, a quick start tutorial for building my first agent. You don't need to watch that because in this tutorial, I am going to walk you through more detail than this video. Let's just click this button, start automating. And here's our dashboard, the main n8n dashboard. Let's expand the left sidebar. As you can see, we get a couple of menu items here. But honestly, we don't really need all of them. The main thing we'll be using right here, creating a new project or workflow. That's it. Inside a project, we build our workflow. Every other option is basically unnecessary for what we are doing. But here, one thing I want to change. Let's switch this theme to dark. We can do this from settings. Let's go to personal. And here you can see we can set up multi-factor authentication, an extra layer for login security. But we'll leave that for now. In the personalization section, let's change the theme to dark and save. And here we go. Our dashboard has switched to dark mode. So let's head back to our dashboard. Here we are now on 14-day trial. We can create a workflow right away by clicking this build a workflow button. But let's get a bit more organized first. Over here, you can see we have this personal. It's just a default project. Let's click at the plus icon at the top and choose to create a new project. I am going to name this project n8n in 2 hours. So this is our project, and inside it, we will create our workflow. Okay, great. Our project is ready. Now let's create our first workflow. We can do this by clicking create workflow right here. And there we go. A new workflow is created. Let's collapse this sidebar. This is our first workflow, and I am going to rename it to workflow 1. Now here, we need to start by adding the first step. We'll add it by clicking this plus icon. This first step is called the trigger. So what is trigger? Just like the name suggests, it's the thing that starts the workflow. There are many ways to trigger. We can trigger it manually or an app event like something happening inside another app. For this first workflow, I will use on form submission. It gives us a form, and the moment someone submits that form, our workflow will kick off. Okay, let's click on form submission. Now this panel opens up. Here you can see this has 3 parts. On the left side, we have the input. This will contain the data that is coming to this component. And on the right side, we see the output. This is the data after processing the component. And everything else on this page is basically system inputs. Here we have this URL and other options. We have 2 URLs here, test URL and a production URL. During testing and building, we can share this test URL with our friend or anyone else to try out. Then once everything is ready and we publish the workflow, we simply switch to the production URL and share that one with our client. Okay, let's go back to the test URL. So for the first form, I don't require any authentication. So let's keep it none. And I'll give it a title, contact us. We can also add a form description here, but let's leave that blank for now. Now we'll add our form fields right here in the form element section. Click the add form element button. In this first field, give the element a label. Basically the name the viewer will see above the box. So our first field will be name. The element type is text field, and this field is required. That means the user must need to provide their name. To enforce this, let's click on this add attribute button. Then choose required field and turn it on. Now let's add another form element. This one is for email. The element type is email, and we'll mark this one as required too. Let's add one more element, inquiry type, and I'll make this a drop down and then fill the choice the viewer can pick from. The first option is course inquiry. Click this button to add another option. This one, technical problem, add another. Payment issue, then access problem, another field, refund request, another partnership, and the final one, other. That's our list. And again, let's add the required field attribute and turn it on. Let's add another element, this time for message. Here, we want to give the viewer a room for type freely. So I am choosing text area as type. And one last element, let's call this priority. Priority is also a drop down with just 2 options. First one is normal and the next one is urgent. That's all the fields we need for now. So let's click execute step. Here you can see a new window opened with our form, and it contains every field we just defined. Let's fill it together. I will enter my name, then email, and set the inquiry type to course inquiry. type short message like, I want to learn more about the course, and the priority to normal, and submit. The form is submitted. If we go back to our n8n dashboard, in this output section, our data is showing up laid out in a table. At the top of the table, you'll see a new option, Schema, Table, and JSON. Right now, table is selected. That is why we are seeing it as a neat table. If we switch to Schema, we can see the very same data. Here, each line contains the data of each form field. Here is the first field, contains the name of the field or label that we have defined in the form, followed by the space and followed by its value. So for name, we have the value we typed, and for message, the field name followed by the message we submitted. If we choose JSON, it's simply another way to represent the same data. It starts with a square bracket, and that square bracket means an array. Think of it as a container holding our submissions. Inside that, we have curly bracket. Everything between the opening and closing curly bracket is the data from one single form submission. Each line shows the field name, then a colon, then the value, and each one is separated by a comma. These all the different ways of looking the exact same data. We can use whichever one suits us whenever we need them. Over here, we have a little pencil icon. If we click it, we land in a new window where we can edit the data. For now, let's just cancel out that. If we slide a bit further to the right, here is the pin icon. Clicking it pins this output in place, so later we can reuse it in the next step without filling out the submitting the whole form again. Let's close this for now. After the form is submitted, here is what I want to do next. Store every submission in a Google Sheet. Let's click the plus icon to add a new step and search for sheet. There it is, Google Sheet. This Google Sheet node supports a few different things such as create a spreadsheet, delete a spreadsheet, append or update row, and many other operations. I'm going to go with append row. Now with that, every time a form data is submitted, it's going to append a new row in the Google Sheet. Now in this window on the left, you can see the input coming into this node. There's the output from our from submission step. To actually write data into the Google Sheet, we first need to connect our Google account. So let's click sign in with Google. A new window pop up to log in to my Google account. Let's choose my account, select all the permissions and continue. And we are connected. And here in this drop down, Google Sheets O2 API credential is selected. Next, let's set the resource to sheet within the document here. But before storing the data to the Google Sheet, at first we need to create a new Google Sheet where this data will be stored. So let's create a new one. In the browser, just type sheets.new. This will instantly create a fresh blank Google Sheet. Here is our new document. I'll name it contract form. Then in the first row, let's add our headers. This will be name, email, inquiry type, message, priority, and submitted at. This field will hold the time the data is saved. Let's make this header row bold. Now back in our n8n workflow, for the resource, I am choosing sheets within the document, and for operation, this drop down gives us a few choices. I am going with append row. For the document, we have a few ways to point n8n to our file. I'll use form list and click on this to choose the form. Here is our contact form showing up. Let's select it. For the sheet, again, we have a few options, and I'll choose form list, and it shows the available sheet inside our contact form. Let's pick that. Now we need to match each header in the sheet to the right piece of the data. Here it's set to map each column manually, and here you can see the header from the sheet shown here. So let's map the column with the data. We'll use the input on the left hand side to map our columns. Make sure schema is selected, then drag the field name, this name value, and drop into the name field. And see, it turns into what's called an expression. Don't worry about expressions just yet. I'll explain them later. So for now, just stick with me. Now let's do the same for email. Drag the inquiry type into inquiry type field and repeat that for remaining fields, including the message. For submitted at, I could simply drag the value across like we did for others. But here I want to show you a slightly different approach. So let's remove that for now. Instead, I would like to write a little code by hand. In n8n, we wrap the code in a double curly braces, and whatever sits inside these braces is treated as JavaScript. I am going to use $sign, then now, and just below, n8n shows us what it actually turns into. If we add a dot after that, here it's suggesting a function named format. This converts the date and type into a string that is easy for human to read, and we can shape it however we want. It's already filled with some predefined value, so we'll get the full year, then the month and date. On top of that, I also want to show the hour, minute and second, and including AM or PM. That's all our parameters set. Now if we click execute step on the right, here it's executed successfully, and in the output here is our data. If we open the Google Sheet, here everything we entered in the form has been saved successfully. Let's delete that row because I want to show you the whole thing running from the start. Now let's clear the pin data from the form, then click execute workflow, and let's fill the form. Name, email, inquiry type set to refund request. Give it a message, something like I want to refund, and priority set to urgent. Submit, and let's close our window. Let's check our Google Sheet. There it is. Our data is saved, and that's it. We have just built our first workflow. We can publish this workflow by just clicking this publish button. Just click that, and here we need to provide a version name so that we can check our changes over time. Let's give this version name v1 and publish. Now we can share this with our client or a friend to test it out. Let's get the sharing link. Let's open our form submission trigger. Let's click on the production URL. This is the live ready to use link. We can simply share this with our client and they can just use this form. And we can even embed it in our contact page in our website. Whenever a customer clicks on the contact button, they will be redirected to this form and they can use it here. But for now, I don't want to share it publicly. So let's unpublish it. Our workflow is unpublished now. Now let's make it more interesting and have some real fun with it. I'm going to duplicate this workflow. So click on this 3 dot here, then select duplicate. I will rename it to workflow 2 and click duplicate. Our new workflow 2 is now opened in a new tab. Let's close the other tabs here. If we go back to the project dashboard, you can see that under this workflow tab, we have our other workflow listed. So we can open whichever workflow we need from here. Back to our workflow 2. And here, what I'll do, it will be actually really fun and interesting to. Here, I will set up a rule based on priority. Let's open our form. This form contains a priority field. If a user set this priority to urgent, I want this should send an email to the admin so they can take action immediately. Let's close the form for now and stop the execution. Right after this Google Sheet, click on this plus sign. I am going to add a if statement. In this settings window of this if node, we can provide our condition. So what is an if node actually? Think of it as a fork in the road. If the data satisfies some condition, that means if the condition is true, it will follow a road. Otherwise, it will follow the other one. Here we can see it has different branches. If the condition is met, it will do one action, and if not, it will do something else. So here in value 1, we need to provide a condition. But first, we need to get some form data to test with. Let's open our form node and click on execute step. Now, let's fill out the form, email, set the inquiry type to technical problem, and give it a simple message like unable to log in. Set the priority to urgent and submit. Here is our data. Let's pin that data so that we can use it later in our other steps. Now we can execute our Google Sheet node to push the data into our Google Sheet. We can do this by clicking the play icon at the top of the Google Sheet node. So it's processing the data. At this point, the data is stored in a Google Sheet. In the if node, you can see on the left side that we now have the data coming from the Google Sheet. This is the output of the Google Sheet node and become the input of this if node. Now back to our if node. For the condition, I am going to check the priority. Let's drag this priority field to value 1. We want to check if these values are equal. So leave it operator as is equal to. Next, need to provide the value that needs to match. This is urgent. One thing to remember, that this text here needs to match exactly as the form data. Okay. Now let's execute this step. As you can see, it has been processed, and in the output, we have the data passing through. We have the data in the true branch. That is because the priority is set to urgent, so it routes down to true branch. In this true branch, I will add a note to send email to the admin. So here, search for Gmail. From here, I'm going to choose send a message. To be able to use Gmail, we need to first sign in with Google. Here, I'll choose my account, give the necessary permission, and click continue. Okay. Our credential is created successfully. Here we can see our success message. We need to fill out some information here. Provide the email address where this message will be sent. Then give it a subject. For the email type, let's stick with text. In this message field, we need to provide our text. Instead of typing a static message, I'll switch to expression mode so that I can provide some code to dynamically capture the form data. Here is the message I am going to provide. Here for typing, I am using a voice dictation tool to write this for me. Hi, an urgent inquiry has been submitted to form, name, email, inquiry, priority message, suggested action. Please review and respond as soon as possible. Here we need to map some data. For name, I would like to provide the actual name we received from the form. Let's click and drag this data from the input here, and then do the same for email, inquiry, priority, and message. Here, the priority and message is in the same line. Let's move this to next line and provide the value of the priority and the message. And in the next line, and here, Whisperflow did not get my actual voice perfectly. So let's correct the typo. Okay. Here we go. Suggested action. Please review and respond as soon as possible. Now let's execute this step. The node executed successfully. Here you can see the output data, and if we check our mail, here you see at the top we have a new mail with a subject. We have a new request. Let's open this mail. Inside, here is the email body. An urgent inquiry has been submitted to the form. It provides the name, email, inquiry, and other data, and also includes our suggested action. Great. Let's delete this test mail and clean up my inbox for now. Let's also go back to our Google Sheet. Here you can see that the data was saved. Okay, good. Let's clear the row in the sheet so we can go into our next step with a clean slate. Back to n8n. And at this time, I'll start testing from the beginning. So let's click on execute workflow and provide some new data. Let's enter a sample email for the inquiry. Let's say it's course inquiry, and set the message to, I want to know more about the course. Let's set the priority to normal and submit. The flow is executed. Here you can see our false node is set to green because the priority is normal. So the data goes to the false branch. I have not added any action for that branch, so it just stops here. If we check the data in the Google Sheet, we have this data saved here. And let's try to fill up another form with urgent data. Let's fill up the data. Name, let's say John Doe, email. Provide the inquiry type as refund request. Set the message to, I want my refund now. Set the priority to urgent and submit. If we check the workflow now, you can see the workflow executed successfully, and true branch of this if node is green. Also, our Gmail node is green. That means that message sent successfully. Let's verify it. I am checking the Google Sheet first. Yeah, that data is stored in the sheet. And now if we check our email, let's refresh. We have this new message. We have a new request. Let's open that. Here is the data. An urgent inquiry has been submitted. It shows the name, email, and other information. We have completed other workflow. So if you are still with me, congratulations. You are already doing a great job. And Trust me, we have just started and we are going to have a lot of fun today. So let's go with the next one for our workflow 3. For workflow 3, let's duplicate this current workflow and let's rename it to workflow 3. Click duplicate. Our new workflow is opened in a new tab. Let's close previous tabs and let's get started on the next one. In this third workflow, we are going to solve a very common problem. Until now, we have been using this default form provided by n8n. When this form is submitted, we append a row in our Google Sheet, and if the priority is urgent, we get an email to my email address. But here is the issue. What if we don't want to use this default form? Instead, you might already have a form in your website that is completely some totally different design, or you may have a chat box that contains an inquiry form like this one, and you want to catch that customer data and store that in the similar way in your automation workflow. So how you can do that? For doing this type of custom integration, we can use Webhook. Webhook is a simple tool that can catch the data sent from your website, and we'll set that up in our workflow 3. Let me show you. Using ChatGPT, I have created a simple web page for us to use. Let's open it. You can see it's a simple HTML page. In the bottom corner, we have this chat icon. If I click on this form opens up. So when this form is submitted, I want to execute our n8n workflow. Here, I did not code this HTML page or chat window at all. And I just used ChatGPT to create this one. And I'll include this HTML file in the resource folder so that you can copy it and use it for your own task. To get this, you can check the link in the description. Let's implement this feature in our workflow. Before you begin, let's clear our Google Sheets data and delete the test emails from my inbox. So we have a clean slate. Okay, back to the canvas. Right now, we have our standard form submission trigger. Let's quickly run it. Fill out the form, provide a name, email, and inquiry type to course inquiry. Give it a message like, I want to learn more about the course. Set the priority to normal and submit. Here, we have this data in our form submission trigger. Let's pin that data so we can use it later. Now, alongside this form trigger, I will introduce another trigger that will collect the data from our chat that I have shown you in my HTML page. So for that, let's search for Webhook and edit. Here we have this Webhook URL, and we need to configure a few settings here. Change the method to post and set the path to chatbot. I don't need authentication, so let's set it to none and set it to respond immediately. So this is our Webhook. Let's move it to the bottom and let's open it up. We are in the testing phase, so let's copy this test URL. We need to provide this URL in our HTML page where this chat window exists. So now let's open our HTML file in a code editor. I'm using Sublime Text. You can use whatever text editor you want. Let's make the font a little bit bigger so we can view the code clearly. Actually, here we don't need to understand all of this code. Just scroll down. And here we have a placeholder. Paste the URL we have just copied and save the file. Now let's head back to our n8n workflow. Let's open this Webhook and click here, listen for test event to execute the workflow. Next, go back to our HTML page and refresh it. Let's fill out the chat form and submit some data. Name is Anna. Provide the email. Let's set the inquiry type is a refund request and set the message to I want a refund and priority set to urgent. Submit. Back to the workflow. The node executed successfully, and in the output we have the data. Let's pin this data. Here you can see it has a lot of extra system information, and our data is basically inside this body section. And here is our inquiry, message, priority, and other data. But there is a problem here. Let me show you what I mean. Let's connect this Webhook node to Google Sheet. Now let's open Google Sheet node. Here on the input, you can see both data from the form submission and Webhook. In our original n8n form submission, the data is directly under the main level. We can reference this in the expression. So this appears as JSON, then the label of the field, that is name. Similar patterns for other inputs for the form submission. But here, see what happens for Webhook. For the Webhook, the data is nested inside the body. If I drag the name to map, here it appears as JSON, then body, and then name. Here, this extra body element is added. Also, the case of this name is not same. Let's remove it and undo the changes. So, because of this mismatch, our system will get confused about which data to store in the Google Sheet. So, how can we make these two data variables same so that we can use it Google Sheet safely? That's really easy. We just need to add an extra step. Let's remove the connection between our form submission and the Google Sheet. Here, I am going to introduce a new node called Edit Fields. This Edit Fields node is basically for mapping and cleaning up data. Using it, we can define our variable names. We can map the input as output. We can rename that variable something else if we want. Here, I will provide the exact same variable name for the webhook and the form submission so that we can use it in our Google Sheet interchangeably without any confusion. Here in the middle, see, we have a drag and drop area where we can add the fields. Let's start with the n8n form data. Let's start dragging the fields over. Name, email, inquiry, then message, priority. I'll keep the new field name simple and clean. Now, link the output of this edit field node to our Google Sheet. In the Google Sheet node, we need to do a quick update. Click execute previous node. Now we are getting the data from the edit fields node. And because our column names match the field names we just said, so we don't need to map anything. Now let's do the same for webhook. Add another edit fields node. And let's drag the data from the webhook that we need to map. Name, email, inquiry type, message, and priority. We need to do some editing here. Here, see, this name is mentioned as body.name. I would like to rename it to just name with capital N to match the data that we have defined for our form submission node. I need to follow the same case for the both of the edit fields variable names. For email, update it to email and also update inquiry type, message, and then priority. Now all the fields are updated and they are exactly same as our first set of fields. Let's connect this node to our Google Sheet. Now here these two nodes are named as edit fields and edit fields 1, but I would like to give them a meaningful name so I can refer them later. Right click. Let's rename the first node. I'll name it form submission field. And the next one, webhook fields. Let's execute the form submission fields node. And the workflow is executed successfully. Again, open our webhook field node and do the same. Execute that and pin the output data. Let's open our Google Sheet node. Here you can see our webhook field and our form fields are named exactly the same. Let's try to execute the whole thing. Here I have unpinned all the data from all of the nodes. Here, please notice the button. It's saying that execute workflow from webhook. That means if we click this button, then this webhook node will be executed, not this form submission field. As this workflow is not public, so we need to make sure appropriate trigger is selected in this button. Let's start from the webhook. Click on execute workflow. Let's go back to HTML page, refresh and open the chat. Provide a name. Let's add me from the webhook. It's just to separate the data so that I can identify it in the Google Sheet. Provide the email. Set the inquiry type to refund request. Set the message to I want a refund now. And set the priority to urgent. And submit. The workflow has executed successfully. If we check the Google Sheet, the data is stored perfectly. And let's check our email. Let's refresh. And there it is. I have received that email. Great. Now let's test our standard n8n web form that we have just created in our previous workflow and copy the URL and open it in a new tab. You can see right now I'm unable to load the form. That is because this workflow is not published. Let's publish this workflow now. Set the version name to v1 and publish. Now let's grab the production link, open the trigger, click the production URL, copy it, and open a new tab and paste the URL. Here, this form is now available for us to submit. So let's fill out the form one more time. Give it a name. Let's say John Doe. Provide the email john@doe.com. Inquiry type to is technical problem. Give it a message like unable to access the site and set the priority to normal. Submit the form. And here, if you check the Google Sheet, there it is. The data of John Doe is saved. Now let's unpublish the form because I don't want to make this available for public right now. So we have successfully completed our third workflow. See, it's really fun and it's becoming more and more interesting. If you are still with me, I hope you are enjoying it and I am able to give you enough value so that you can use in your real workflow. So before we move to our next workflow, let's quickly recap what we have learned so far. Actually, we have learned quite a lot of things. In workflow 1, we started with a basic on-form submission trigger. This was a simple workflow where we filled out a form and the data was stored in the Google Sheet. In workflow 2, we introduced a if node. Here, we check if the priority was urgent, and if so, we use Gmail to send an alert email. And now in workflow 3, we took a major step forward. We have added a webhook so we can now able to get data from both our external website and internal n8n form. We use the edit field nodes to map the data received from both sources to a unified variable name, stored it in Google Sheet, and based on the urgency criteria, send our admin an email. Trust me, if you are following along me till now, you know a lot more than any other people. You are building a real advanced automation system. Okay, so for now, let's keep building and start our next workflow. For the next workflow, I have added a new Google Sheet. Let me show you. Go to Drive. Here, I have added this new sheet, Customer Enquiry Tracker. Let's open that. In this sheet contains 115 sample data. It contains name, email, inquiry type, and other information that is submitted by the customer. So here we have our status column. It has 4 options: new, pending, replied, and closed. If I scroll down the sheet here, you see I have some data that status is set to replied and some data is closed. Now in this workflow, what I will do is to check if the status is either pending or new. If it is, I will send a summary email to the admin about the overall status of the data. So let's head back to the n8n playground. Here, let's create a new workflow. I'll name it workflow 4 and add our first step. Here, we have a trigger called onSchedule. We can configure it to run at a specific time. We can schedule the operation every day or hour or any custom interval. We can schedule the operation to send a summary email on every morning or at a specific time interval that is convenient for our client, and it will send the email automatically at the specific interval that we provide here. But for now, I'm going to use a manual trigger. Let's remove this schedule trigger and start again. Here, I am going to choose this trigger to execute workflow manually. There are no settings to update for this one. We can just click on this execute workflow and it will run. So when this is executed, I want to get the data from our Google Sheet. So here, search for Google Sheet. For the operation, I am going to use get rows in sheet. Here we need to provide some settings for the sheet. I have already set the credentials. Choose the document. Here you can see our custom entry tracker is already there. Select that and choose the leads sheet. Now let's execute this step. On the right side in the output, we can see the data is from our Google Sheet, and here we have fetched 115 records. Next, what I'm going to do is filter out the data that contains the status either new or pending. For doing that, I'm going to add a new field. I'm going to add a new node called filter. In this filter node, we can provide a condition based on certain criteria. The data will pass through the filter only if it matches that criteria. Otherwise, it will be blocked. So here I am going to check for status and set it equal to new. We also have another status that is pending. So let's add another condition. Drag the status again, and I want it equal to pending. And again, make sure the spelling and the case, it needs to be the same that is provided in the Google Sheet. Let's execute the step. Here, there is no data in the output. There, I must made some mistake. Yes, I found that. Here, I set the condition and. That means the status needs to be new and pending. If both conditions are true, then it will pass. But that is not the case. A single item cannot be both at the same time. So the request can be either new or pending. So let's change this setting to or. And now execute the step and see the output. Perfect. We have 100 items that pass this condition, and the other data that is discarded is either closed or replied. Let's close this. So after filtering, we have 100 rows of data. For doing summary email, we actually cannot send this all 100 data to our admin. If we try to send an email for each of them, it will actually clog up our inbox with 100 separate emails. So instead of doing this, we can merge them into a single list. For doing that, we can use aggregate. Let's search for aggregate. Here, what it says, aggregate combines fields from many items into a single list inside a single item. This is what we are going to do. Combine these 100 items into a single list. Let's put it here. On the left, we have our filtered data. Here, we need to do some configuration for the aggregate node. We'll choose aggregate all item data into a single list. For the output field name, I'll call it leads instead of just data. Now, all the data will be under the leads object. I don't want to include all the fields here. So I'll specify exact fields we want to keep. And in this input field, we need to provide the field that we want to include separated by commas. Here, I want to include name, email, priority, and also status. Now, let's execute this step. And here on the output, all the data is under leads. And each item has the name, email, priority, and status. Let's close this. We are done with our aggregate. From 100 items, we have now merged it down to one item. After aggregating, we are now going to add our Gmail node to send the email. Let's add Gmail and choose the send message operation. I need to do some setup for credentials. It's already got my previous authentication. For the to provides the email address where I want to get the mail. For the subject, let's keep it blank for now. For the message, here I will take a little bit different approach this time. Instead of writing it this myself, I'll use Google Gemini to help me write this message. Let's open Gemini in a new tab. First, for our workflow, let's change our data view from schema to JSON. Inside this topmost square bracket, we have this copy button. Make sure you click this copy button to copy all the data. In Google Gemini, here I am giving my prompt. Here is my aggregate data from n8n. I want to write a summary email. Give me the content expression for the Gmail node. And then paste the data and send a request. Here it has come up with the JavaScript code. Let's copy this. And in our workflow, in the message field, let's move to expression mode and paste the code. We also need to change the email type to HTML. For the subject, let's take help from Gemini again. Give me the expression for the subject. And here it is. Let's copy this. Change the subject field to expression and paste the subject here. Let's make the message box a little bit bigger so you can see the full code. Here, it is a JavaScript code provided by Gemini. You can see Gemini is incredibly good at writing the code and formatting the mail. So you don't need to memorize all of these. You can just use Gemini. Instead of use Gemini, you can use any other LLM tools like ChatGPT, Claude, or anything. You will likely get the same result. If we switch to the HTML preview, you can see this beautiful HTML data. Okay, let's close this and execute the workflow. It's getting the data from Google Sheet, doing the filter and aggregate, and the email is sent. If we check our Gmail here, we have this email. See the subject, action required. Here is this beautiful, quite detailed summary email. This provides a lead summary. It has 100 total and 60 new and 40 pending. It also included some of the data from Google Sheet. And that is how we can send summary email. With that, congratulations, we have just completed our another workflow. And I believe you'll find this interesting and useful for your work. If you're enjoying this so far, let's get ahead and start our new workflow. At this time, we'll start working with AI agent. And AI will make our workflow a lot fun and we are able to do a lot of complex tasks. So let's go ahead and create a new workflow. Here, I'm going to name it workflow 5. Now let's add our first trigger. I'm going to use the on-chat message node. This will act as a listener for our chat, and here is nothing else to set up here. If you click this open chat here, you see we have this chat window where you can just type a message and send it. Here, what I want to do is add a AI agent. We'll use the AI agent to build our autonomous helper. And here, let me keep it as it is for a moment. Our chat input from chat trigger that we just added is already mapped into this prompt. Additionally, we can actually add some other options. We can click this add option and you can add a system message. And right now it is populated with a default message. You are a helpful agent. Okay, let's close this now. So now for this AI agent to actually work, we need 3 things. For this AI agent, we need a brain to think, a memory to store the information that it learns, and a tool that is actually execute the work. Just like human, that we have a brain to think. We also have a memory to store the data that is basically inside our brain. And also we have a tools like hand, and also we can build our custom tools to do our tasks. So we can treat this AI agent similarly. And here you can see in the bottom, we have these 3 connection points on the node. This one is chat model, that is mandatory. That is basically the brain of this AI agent. Then memory to store and retain the data, and the tool. Okay. So this chat model is the brain of our AI agent. Here we can add our large language model. We can connect the cloud-based LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and any other AI model that is available. Also, you can add locally running AI models into this node. And here you can see n8n also provides a handful of chat model integration. We can just pick it from the list and connect it here. This one is required because without a brain, just like a human, this AI agent is just unable to do its work. The next thing is memory. To retain information and remember past conversations, it needs a memory node connected. Finally, we'll give it a tool so it can actually take action and do its work. Okay, now let's give our AI agent a brain. Click on this plus icon here. It will show you the available chat models. For this one, I'm going to use OpenAI chat model. Let's click on this OpenAI chat model. And here, we need to do some configuration. First of all, we need to set up the credentials using an API key. You can click here to read the documentation on how to get the API key and set up this AI agent. You can read that, but actually you don't need to do that. That is because I'm going to show you exact step how you can do it there. Let's close all the tabs now. In a new tab, let's navigate to platform.openai.com. Note that this is a developer platform, not the regular ChatGPT website. Let's log in. Here I have logged in, and this is the dashboard of OpenAI platform. On the left sidebar, we have a couple of options. From here, click on these API keys. At this moment, I don't have any API keys generated yet. So let's create one. Make sure project API keys is selected and click the create new secret key button. Give it a name. Here, we can give it specific access permission. We could restrict it, but let's give it all permission for now and create the key. Here, our API key is created. Let's copy it. But before we can work with this API key and call our OpenAI API to get the response, we need to add some credit. To do that, click on this icon on the left bottom, then profile settings, and click on this billing. Here, we need to add some credit balance. The minimum credit balance that we need to add is $5. You can add this credit using your credit card. Click this add credit balance, and here you can give a minimum balance of $5 and you need to add the payment method. Let's close this, and that is all we need to have to do here. Now let's head back to our workflow. In this API key field, paste the API key that we just copied and click save. Our API is successfully connected. So let's go back to the main window. Here I'll choose the model. There are various models are available. You can choose the one that is suited for your needs. I'm going to use GPT 4.1 mini. For my case, it's perfect balance between intelligence and the cost. Now, let's open this AI agent. The next thing I'll do is to click this add option and add a system message. I'm going to update it with a custom message. Here, we have already this message. You are a helpful assistant. Keep answer short and clear. Now, let's close this. Now, if you open the chat window, let's ask a question. Hi, I'm Iftikhar. I want to learn n8n. Let's see what it answers. It's working. The AI is processing our prompt, and here is the response. Let's see what it is saying. Hi Iftikhar, n8n is a powerful workflow automation tool. Let's start learning, and it has also given me some other information. Now, here is the test. Let's ask another question. What do I want to learn? Let's send the message and see what response we get. Here you see the message. Your goals or hobbies can guide what you want to learn. It just can't remember what I just told it previously because it doesn't have any memory currently. It has brain, it can think, but it can't remember anything. So let's give it a memory. For the memory, there are many options available. We can use MongoDB chat memory or PostgreSQL chat memory or many others. For this simple project, I'm going to use this simple memory. I don't need anything too complex right now. Here we have a couple of options to set it up. For the session ID, it is automatically connected with the chat trigger node. And the context window length is set to 5. That means it can remember the past 5 interactions. Based on our needs, we can increase or decrease it. I'm going to leave it at 5. Now, if we again open the chat window and ask, hi, I am Iftikhar. I want to learn n8n. It gives a good response. Again, if I ask, what do I want to learn? And send the message. Let's see what it says. Here is the answer. You wanted to learn n8n for automation without writing code. Perfect. It can now remember my past conversations. And if I ask, what is my name? It can also answer my name currently. Your name is Iftikhar. Perfect. This is how we can add simple memory to our AI agent. Now, let's do one more thing. Let's add a tool to perform a specific task. Click on the plus icon and search for calculator. Here, I'm going to use this simple calculator tool. It simply calculates the data based on math rules. And there are so many other tools you can explore. Here is nothing to set up in this calculator node. Again, let's open the chat and ask a question. If each course costs $10, then how much do I need if I want to purchase 3 courses? Send a message. You can see all the step is executing. And finally, it delivers the answer. You need $30 to purchase 3 courses at $10 each. Perfect. Let's ask another question. So for 5, again, it answers. It can remember from my previous conversation that the price of the course is $10. So here is giving. You need $50 to purchase 5 courses at $10 each. We have successfully created our first very simple AI agent workflow. Here we have used brain to think, added a memory to retain the information, even added a tool to perform an actual task. Honestly, this is a basic stuff like learning ABC in English alphabet. But with these basic steps, you can do a lot more complex things. You can make it do anything you want. Now that we have an understanding of this AI agent, and let's connect it with a real scenario and do actual stuff. Now, let's open our previous workflow 3. Here, let's execute this on form submission trigger. As you can see in this form, we have a field called priority, and the customer can set it to normal or urgent. Here, maybe in a situation where a customer selects urgent, but the inquiry is not actually that important, and that happens frequently in the real world case. They just wanted to ask random stuff, and we don't need to answer that immediately. So instead of providing these options to the customer, let's use our AI agent to read the message, understand the form data, and automatically mark it whether it's urgent or normal. And if it's urgent, then it will send me the notification via email that we saw in our previous workflow. So this is one of the perfect example on how AI can be so useful for your real business. And this is just a bare minimum that we can do with AI agent. And trust me, the sky is the limit. So let's proceed. Here, let's duplicate this workflow. And I'm going to name it workflow 6. Now, here our new workflow is created. Let's close other tabs. For this setup, let's modify the form. I do not need the priority field anymore, so let's remove it. Here, we have this drop-down item. This one is the priority field of the form. Let's remove it. Also, let's check the edit fields node of this form submission. And here we have this priority field. Let's remove it. For the webhook field, actually, I have defined those fields in the HTML on that chat window. So here, nothing to change in this field. But I don't need to update this edit field of this webhook. Here, I need to remove the priority. Okay. Now, let's remove the connection between the form trigger and our Google Sheet. Also, remove the other connection. And here, between the Google Sheet and our form submission, I am going to add an AI agent. Click on this plus icon, then AI, and choose AI agent. This AI agent is connected with this form submission field. Let's connect it with webhook field. Now, let's execute this form submission to get some test data. Click this play icon. This is our form. And here, we do not have the priority field anymore. Let's fill out the form quickly. Give it a name, email, inquiry type, and a message. Submit. Now, let's close the form. Now, let's open on form submission node. Let's pin this data so we can see it in the next step. Now, execute the form submission field. Let's organize these workflow components and open AI agent. In our AI agent, on the left, we have the input data from our form submission. Here, for this AI agent, I have specific instruction. So, I will add a system message, add option, then system message. Let's expand this for better view. Here, I am going to give a large prompt. So, let me read out loud what the prompt is. You are an inquiry triage assistant. Your task is to read a customer inquiry and decide whether it's urgent or normal. Return only one word, urgent or normal. Mark the inquiry as urgent only if the user says payment failed, user paid but cannot access the course or product, the user has a class, meeting or deadline today or within 24 hours, the user is angry, complaining strongly or asking for a refund, the issue blocks the user from using paid service, the message clearly asks for immediate help. Mark the inquiry normal if the user only asks about price, the user asks for course details, the user asks a general question, the user is interested but not facing an immediate problem. Do not explain your answer, do not add punctuation, do not return anything except urgent or normal. Okay, that's our system prompt. Let's close this. Beside this, I also need to configure the user message. We need to modify this user message and write our custom message that will be fed into the model so that it can evaluate the data. Here, change the source of the prompt from connected chat trigger node to define below. Move the expression tab and again Make this window bigger. Let's drag our form fields over here. Name, email, then inquiry type and message. Move them into new lines to keep it clean. And here, provide level of each element. Next one is email, next inquiry type and message. And include this sentence, classify this uniquely as urgent or normal. Okay, now let's add the brain, that is connect with chat model. Click on chat model. Here I am going to use OpenAI, so select that. Here it has taken my credential from my previous workflow, so I don't need to configure the API keys to connect with the OpenAPI. Here change the model to GPT 4.1 mini. Let's zoom out a little bit. Now I will connect this AI agent to Google Sheet. But before connecting, after this AI agent, I need to add a edit field node. At this moment, on the left, we don't have any input data. Let's execute the AI agent by pressing the play icon. Here, you can see the output from AI agent is urgent. Okay, let's drag the existing input fields from our form submission over here. Email, inquiry type, message, and we also need to drag the output from the AI agent. I will rename this output to priority. Let's connect this edit fields node to the Google Sheet. Here, let's make this workspace organized. Now, let's test this workflow. Before that, let's unpin the test data from our form submission node. Now, click execute workflow. Our form opens. Fill up with the name, email, inquiry type. I'm going to set it to refund request and message. Something like, I want my refund now. Then submit. As you can see, it is appending the row in the sheet and send the email. Let's check the email. Here is my new email and urgent inquiry has been submitted with all of the data. Let's check the Google Sheet. The information is perfectly marked as urgent. The cool thing is that customer did not select it manually, and our AI agent is smart enough to detect the message if that's urgent, and if that is urgent, then it can send me a notification mail. Now let's test this with our custom webhook. Change the trigger to listen for the webhook. We need to copy the webhook URL. Now open our index.html file in text editor. Here this is the JavaScript code. Now update the URL and save. Let's open our web page. And here is our chat window. Here I forgot to remove the priority drop-down field. Let's edit that. Back to our HTML code. Here search for priority. Here this is. Remove the section responsible for rendering the priority field. Save the file and go back to our page. Refresh. And now we no longer have this priority field in this form. Let's fill out the form. Give it a name, Alex. Email, alex@mail.com. Inquiry type, pricing question. And the message, what is the course price? And submit. The form is submitted. Let's back to our n8n. Here, the workflow failed. It executed the webhook, ran the AI agent, and communicated with OpenAI model, but it failed at the edit fields node. Let's open edit field node. Here on the output, we have this detailed error message. An expression references in the node, but the node is unexecuted. Let's check the webhook node. Here, it successfully captured the name, email, and inquiry message. But here, in this AI agent, I have mapped the field to pull data specifically from form submission trigger. So it was unable to get the data from the webhook trigger. Okay. Now, if we update the mapping to get the data from this webhook node, then the form submission trigger would break. So how we can solve this? Actually, the fix is very simple. First, let's open our webhook and pin their test data so we can use it. Also, I need the test data for the form submission. So let's execute the form trigger and quickly fill out the form, name, email, access problem, and the message. I am unable to access the portal. Submit the form. Here, pin the data in form submission. And now we have test data pinned on both triggers. First, let's delete both connection leading to the AI agent. Now, before connecting to the AI agent, I am going to add a new node called merge. The merge node combines the data stream. So let's connect the form submission node to input 1 and connect the webhook node to input 2. In this way, whether the data comes from the built-in form or the webhook, it passes through a single merge node before going to the AI agent. This gives our a consistent data path. Let's execute the form submission field. Here we have our name, email, and inquiry type perfectly lined up. Now let's check the data from webhook field. We are getting the same message, same variable, and the same output. That's how we can merge those different triggers and get the output variable in an identical way so that we can feed them into our Google Sheet. And connect our merge node to the AI agent. Let's clean up the workflow a bit. In our AI agent, we don't need to update anything because let's execute this merge node. Here, you can see that the variables are exactly the same as our form submission field. And in the user prompt, we don't need to change anything at all. You can identify this by checking these green text and labels. This confirms that the data mapped perfectly. Let's close this. Our next task is to update the edit field node that accept the data from the AI agent. Here, we need to make some modifications. Let's remove all the old fields and start refresh. Let's expand merge node and drag the fields over one by one. And for the output, drag it from AI agent. Finally, let's rename the last field to priority. Now, let's execute this step. Here, the node executed successfully. Now, let's test the full workflow. Before that, let's unpin the data from the form submission node and do the same thing for webhook. First, we'll test our form submission trigger. So make sure it is selected and click execute workflow. The form is open and just fill up the form quickly. Before that, let's clear the data from our Google Sheet so that it does not get messy and cluttered. Again, now back to our form. Fill up the form with a name and email and choose the inquiry type to course inquiry and give it a message. I want to learn n8n and submit. Google Sheet not executed, but our send email node is not green. That is because our AI agent marked this message as normal priority, so it did not send the email. Now let's try to execute this from the webhook. Choose the webhook trigger and click execute workflow. Let's go to our HTML page and fill up the form. Let's change the inquiry type to payment issue and messages. I am unable to pay for the course. And submit. Here you can see the webhook executed perfectly. If we check the Google Sheet, this message is marked as urgent. Let's check our email. And here we have a new message. An urgent inquiry has been submitted. Cool. Now this is how we can leverage the power of AI agent to classify the type of data that is coming to our system from the customer. Now let's do some advanced stuff. Let's open our previous workflow, workflow 5. So in this workflow, we connected the OpenAI chat model to our AI agent. This is the brain that our AI agent used to think and give it a memory to remember our chat. And that brain already knows a massive amount of information, basically the whole internet. But if you ask about your company's information, your pricing, your last week's support tickets, or any other information that is related only to your company and that is exist only inside your company's internal document, the AI agent does not have any idea about that. It's actually simply never seen that data. Let me show you. Let's open the chat. And here, if I ask, what we learn on workflow 3? See, it can't answer. It does not have any idea about this video tutorial. Actually, this AI agent does not need to know everything. We just needed to know what we have, our own document, our own company's data, our own information, not everything else. A general model has too much information, and honestly, we don't need most of them. We just need only the part that is ours. So, how do we give our own data? And it should answer from that data. It should only follow that, nothing more. And this is where RAG comes in. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is technical, but trust me, it's more simple than that. Let's break it down one word at a time. First, we go and fetch relevant information from our own data, our documents, our PDF, our own piece of knowledge. And this is called retrieval. And then we add that information into our AI prompt as extra context. And this is augmented. And finally, AI uses that context to generate the answer. And that is called generation, RAG. So retrieve, augment, and generation. There's a whole idea. Think of it like an open book exam, a normal LLM answering from a huge general memory. Most of it is not even related to our own question, and it does not contain our company specific data. An AI agent with RAG skip all this noise. It opens only the book that is actually matters. That is our own data, our own information, our own knowledge base. And then answer. Same brain, same intelligence, but just focus on what actually matters. And there's the game changer. Because now our AI agent is not drowning on general knowledge that it actually even does not need. And it does not blind about our own data either. It's answering exactly from what we gave it and accurately up to date. So in this next workflow, we are exactly going to build this. So we are going to give our AI agent a knowledge base of its own. So it only pull from what we actually have, nothing more. Let's get into it. Here, I have created this PDF document. This PDF covers everything I have taught you in this tutorial. I have broken the whole workflow into chapters. For example, Chapter 4 is about advanced operation. That's where I showed you the filter, the aggregate node, and how to schedule a summary email. This document is basically the full written out step-by-step guide of everything I have shown you in this tutorial. And this is exactly what I am going to teach our agent to learn. And here's why. My students are going to have questions, and I can't realistically be online 24/7 to answer every single one of them. So I may set an agent that can automatically answer the question about this course, nothing else. If the question is too critical and too complex for it to handle, it can simply send me the mail, or it can hand the conversation to a real person who can help. In short, I am building an AI agent to support my student. To make this possible, this AI agent first needs to understand, needs to know about this document, where all information lives and what it means. So let's go ahead and set this up. We'll do this in 2 steps. I will separate in 2 workflows. First, we'll build a workflow where it loads the PDF and stores it in the database. Specifically, a vector store. It's a special kind of database that is built to store and search by meaning, not just the keyword. And we'll build a second workflow where our AI agent pulls data back from this database and answer the question. Okay, so let's start with the first one, storing the data from the PDF. Let's create a new workflow and name it workflow 7. First, I need a way to actually upload the PDF. There are few options are there. We could pull the data straight from the Google Drive, but I'm going to keep it simple and use a form instead. I will use the on form submission trigger. Here, first give the form a title, submit file. Next, I need to add the form element. The only field I need, label it file. and set the element type to file. Now let's execute this step and test it. Here is our form. I am uploading this automation masterclass PDF and upload. Let's close the form. Here on the right hand side in this output panel, you can see the uploaded file. Let's close this and move on. Next, we need to connect a database. This is where our document will actually be stored and will be searched from. I'm going to use Supabase. There are two options, Supabase and Supabase Vector Store. I'll use this Vector Store option. This is the version built specifically to work as vector database. From the available action, I'll choose Add Documents to Vector Store. In the settings panel, we need to set up our credentials. So let's click Set up Credentials. Here, we need to provide the host URL and a service role secret. We can get it from Supabase. Let's open Supabase. To use Supabase, you will need to have a Supabase account. You can create an account for free, and then you need to create an organization, and under that organization, you need to create a project. I have already mine set up, so let's log in using my email address. Here in the dashboard, it's showing my organization. If you have not created any organization yet, you can simply create this by clicking this Create New Organization button. As my organization already exists, let's open it. Next, I'll create a new project. Here, give it a name, n8n RAG. Then set a database password. Make sure to use a strong password here and click to create the project. Our new project is ready. Now we need to grab our API URL and the secret key. From the sidebar, hover to expand it and click Project Settings. And from here, go to Data API. Under Data API, you will find our API URL. Let's copy that and paste it. Here, we do not need this last part. /rest /v1 is not needed here. Let's remove it. And for the service role secret, go back to our Supabase dashboard, back to our project settings. Then under configuration, we have this menu, API keys. Make sure you are in this published and secret API keys tab. Scroll down and you will see, and you will find the secret key. A secret key is already generated for us, so I will use the default one, but if you need, you can create your own secret key by clicking this Create Secret Key button to generate new one. I'll copy this back to n8n and paste it into the service role secret field. Save. Our credentials are connected successfully to Supabase. Back in the node settings, here keep operation mode to insert documents. Next, we need to set the table name. If we click into the field right now, nothing shows up. That's because we have not created a table yet. Supabase does not let us to create a table directly from this interface. So to create this table, I will need help from this n8n documentation. Let's click on this pencil icon to edit credential. Here we have this link to documentation. Let's open it. Then click on this link, Supabase Vector Store, because we are using this Vector Store. Then in this screen, scroll down. Supabase provides a quick start for setting up your Vector Store. Open this link. Now scroll down. Here it provides this SQL script. Let's copy it. Head back to Supabase. Expand the sidebar and go to SQL editor. Paste the SQL here and run it. It's asking whether to enable row level security. It's recommended for security reason. I will enable it before running the query. Click on this green button to run it. It executed successfully. Here is the success message and it runs with no error. Let's check the table was actually created. From the sidebar, click Table Editor and here you can see our new documents table along with its field. Head back to our n8n workflow. Now, if we try to select a table name again, there it is. Our documents table is showing up and select it. Next, I need to add an embedding. Embedding is what that converts our text into a format that our AI can search by meaning. Click this plus icon and from this list, choose embedding OpenAI. It's already picked up my credentials from earlier app. For the model, I will select text embedding 3 small. It's important to remember which model you choose here because we will need the same model when we retrieve the data from the database. Next, I need to add a document loader. The document loader actually reads the file and break into pieces that our embedding model can understand. Without this, our PDF would just sit as a raw data that AI can't use. There only one option there, the default data loader. Let's add it. For data type, I'll choose binary, as our PDF is a binary file. For mode, I'll select load input data. For data format, I'll choose PDF. For text splitting, I'll leave it on the default setting. That works fine for me. Let's close this and run our Supabase vector store node. Click this play icon to execute this. You can see it's working through each step. The OpenAI embeddings process the text, and finally, it stores everything in our Supabase database. Let's head back to Supabase. It may take a couple of minutes to load the data. Let's wait. And here it is. All the data has come through. If we open up the embedding field, you can see the data that's stored here. If you want more control, you can click Add option to set things like dimension or size or batch size. Experiment with that to find the best option that works for you. Our document is now safely stored in the database. The next step is to build our actual agent. The agent will talk to the student and understand their question and pull the right answer straight from the database and provide it to the student. So let's head back to the dashboard. Create a new workflow. I'll name this workflow 8. Here, first we need to add a trigger. Now, I am going to implement a chat feature to communicate with this AI agent. To able to communicate with this AI agent from the chat window of our site, we need to use Webhook. Add a trigger on Webhook call. Here, we need to do some changes. Change the HTTP method to post. Then I would like to update the path. Let's say chatbot and set authentication to none. Change response to using response to Webhook node because this time we will not respond immediately. We will pass the request to the AI agent and this AI agent will search from the database and talk with our LLM models to provide the answer. Then it will generate the response and send back to the user. Okay, let's close it. Now here I will add an AI agent. Choose AI, then AI agent. Here I need some input for AI agent to configure. Okay, let's close it. So let's open Webhook node and from here copy the URL. Here I am copying the test URL. That is because this workflow is not published yet. Now, okay. So now for this workflow to interact with this agent, I have created a HTML file. This one named chatbot.html. Let's open it in the browser. See, we have this beautiful HTML landing page with a chat in the right corner. I actually did not create this page as usual. I just prompted ChatGPT to build this for me and I'll include this with the resource. Please check the description for the resource. Here we can type a message to interact with the n8n and AI agent. Okay, let's go to our HTML file. Now I am going to open it using a text editor. I am using Sublime Text. Here it has HTML codes for the web page. Just scroll down and here we have this JavaScript section. And here you can see we have this placeholder. Paste your n8n webhook URL here. Save it. Back to the browser. In n8n, this window of Webhook opens. Click this Listen for Test Event button. Now open our landing page. We need to refresh it. Now open the chat and ask the question. What will I learn in workflow 3? Here it is unable to give us the response. It could not reach the chatbook webhook. Let's check n8n. Here is the error. No response to webhook node is found in the workflow. Okay. Here in the output of this AI agent, we need to add another webhook for the response. Let's do it. It will be this one. Respond to webhook. Here we need to change this item response with to first incoming item. Okay, let's close this. Now again, click execute workflow. Back to our landing page, refresh. Again, open the chat window and ask the question. This time, we are getting same error message. Let's check n8n. Here is the error. A chat model subnode must be connected and enabled. This makes sense. It is because we did not connect our chat model to an AI agent. That's why it's unable to process the request and provide proper response. It's okay because right now we are actually capturing the user's information, user's input. So let's do the rest of the work. Open this Webhook trigger. In the output, now we have this data. Let's pin this. Now open AI agent. Here, as input, you can see we have this data from the webhook. Here we need to map this with our prompt. Here is our message and the body. To give it as a prompt, we need to change the source of prompt. Choose define below, and here this prompt for the user message input field. Select expression, and I will drag the chat input into this box. But there is one problem. We have these two exactly same data. This chat input and this message, both are same. So we can choose either one. First, let's drag chat input to the prompt field. Now, message field also have the same data. To be safe, I would like to include that one also. But before that, I will add two pipes here. These two pipes refer to a logical OR. Now, drag this message into this input. So now what it will do is that it will get the input from either chat input or the message. Because of any error, if chat input is blank, in that case, it will capture the data from the message. Also, I need to add a system message. Let's expand this. Here, I'm going to provide a large prompt. Let's paste it. Now, let me read it for you what I put in this prompt. You are a helpful RAG support assistant for an n8n automation masterclass. You must answer the question using the Supabase knowledge base tool connected to you. The knowledge base contains a PDF document about n8n workflow automation, core concepts, real workflow, advanced data operations, AI agents, memory, tool, and retrieval augmented generation with the Supabase. Strict rules. Search for Supabase knowledge base before answering questions about n8n, workflows, AI agent, memory, tools, RAG, Supabase integration, workflows, query workflows, or document retrieval. Answer only from the information found in the retrieved knowledge base context. If the answer is not found in the retrieved context, say exactly, I do not have that information in the knowledge base. Do not invent information. Do not guess price, tools, node settings, policies, or technical steps that are not in the knowledge base. Keep the answer short, clear, and beginner friendly. Use bullet points when explaining steps or list. If the user asks about the difference between memory and RAG, explain that memory remembers the current conversation while RAG searches external documents. If the user asks about RAG process, explain it as load document, split text, create embedding, stored in Supabase, type relevant chunks, then generate an answer. Do not mention internal vector IDs or database implementation details unless the user asks. Here, I need to do some changes. Let's remove this portion. So it will now do not mention internal vector ID or database implementation. I needed to do this because of security purpose. The user does not need to know the vector ID or the database info. Tone, friendly, practical, and clear. Okay, let's close it and close this window. Now, I will connect chat model to this AI agent. I am going to use OpenAI chat model. Here, we need to provide the credentials. It has taken my credentials from my previous workflow. For the model, I am going to choose GPT 4.1 mini. I don't need to configure anything else here. Let's close it. Now, we need to connect it with our Supabase. We need to connect it as tool of AI agent. Search for Supabase. Select this Supabase vector store. Here, we need to set the credentials. It already picked that I have configured in our previous workflow. Let's give it a description. use this to get the information on my n8n course. This will help our AI agent to know what I need to do. Here, I need to choose the table, that is document. Here for the limit, with this limit, it defines maximum number of most similar documents or chunks the database should return during the query. By default, it's set to 4. You can decrease or increase it. Play with it by yourself to identify the ideal size for your case. I'm going to keep this as default. Now, we want to add embedding to the Supabase. Choose this embedding OpenAI. Here, it gets the credentials from our OpenAI. For model, choose this text embedding 3 small. We need to make sure this is the same embedding model that we have used in our previous workflow where we stored the data in the Supabase. Let's check. Here in this workflow 7, and here we are using this text embedding 3 small model. Okay. Let's back to our workflow 8. Now let's organize this. Now I will execute this workflow, but before that, let's unpin the data from the Webhook node. Now execute the workflow and back to our landing page. Refresh. Ask the question, what will I learn in workflow 3? Here we have this nice animation. Our assistant is checking, and let's check what happening in our n8n. Here, AI agent is now interacting with Supabase vector store to get the answer. Again, AI agent is using ChatGPT to generate the answer, and workflow is executed. Let's see what it has responded. It says, in workflow 3, we learned how to handle a dual source integration using Webhook. Especially this workflow solves the problem of accepting form submission from both n8n built-in form and an external website chat widget, and then routing both through the same downstream processing pipeline. Wow, it's good. Why not ask another question? How can I host n8n? This time we get an error in the response. Let's check. Here the workflow stopped as I did not publish this workflow. So after executing one time, it stopped. To make it always work, we need to publish this, but I don't want to publish this publicly. So let's click on this execute workflow button and back to our landing page. Again, ask the same question. And here is the answer. You can host n8n in 2 main ways, cloud hosted and self-hosted. And it provides details information from the document. And this is how we can build RAG from our internal company's data. And once you know the step, you can build it super fast. And this is how you can build a RAG system trained on your own company's data. Once you know the steps, you can put one together really fast. That's everything you need to know about n8n to get started. If you have made it so far, seriously, congratulations! You are already ahead of most of people who just watch and never actually build. You just went from 0 to building 8 real automations, including an AI agent that can think, remember, and take action. That's not beginner stuff anymore. Here, what I want you to do next. Pick one of these workflows and build it yourself, not from your memory, from scratch. That's where the real learning happens. And if you are wondering, what's now? This is just the foundation. On this channel, I'll be covering advanced n8n workflows, AI agents that connect to your actual business tools, and entire automation systems you can build. So hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.